The knock at the door came sharp and loud, the kind of pounding that made the walls tremble for a second. I wasn't expecting anyone, and when I pulled the curtain back just enough to peek, I saw a man standing there in a dark uniform. His shirt had patches that looked official at a glance, but something about the stitching was off, too shiny, too new. He had a utility belt with a holster, though no weapon sat in it, just a flashlight clipped awkwardly. His cap read Community. Security and a plastic badge caught the porch light. My wife, 7 months pregnant, shuffled beside me, hand on her belly as if the baby inside could feel the tension already. I opened the door only halfway, keeping my hand on the frame. The man immediately straightened, puffing his chest like he was about to write someone a ticket. Evening. I'm with the HOA Enforcement Division, he said, his tone clipped, rehearsed. We've had repeated complaints about your driveway, parking and loud disturbances at night. I'm here to issue a violation notice. My wife frowned and stepped forward. Excuse me? We haven't broken any rules. And who exactly are you? The HOA doesn't have a police division. Her voice had steel in it, though I could see the nervous twitch in her fingers. The man sneered, pulling a clipboard from under his arm. The papers clipped to it were blank except for one sheet with lines scribbled in pen, no official letterhead, no signatures. Ma'am, don't make this harder than it has to be. I've been authorized to enforce community regulations. Non-compliance could mean fines or even eviction. I narrowed my eyes. Authorized by who? Show me your credentials. A real badge, real ID. Not that plastic thing you picked up from a costume shop. His jaw tightened, and he shifted his weight like he wasn't used to being challenged. My wife crossed her arms over her chest, standing taller than she should have in her condition. This is harassment, she said firmly. You're not real law enforcement. I'm calling the HOA president right now. The fake cop's expression darkened. He stepped closer to the threshold, close enough for me to smell the stale tobacco on his breath. You don't want to do that, he muttered, his voice dropping low. The threat was clear, the kind that made every hair on my neck stand on end. Something wasn't right, and I knew in that instant this night was about to take a dangerous turn. That my wife had just reached for her phone when the man's patience snapped. His hand shot out, smacking the device clean from her fingers. It clattered across the porch, skidding into the shadows. I said, "Don't make this harder," he barked, his voice rising, echoing through the quiet neighborhood. She gasped, clutching her stomach as the sudden movement startled her. I moved to step between them, but before I could, he shoved her hard with the heel of his hand. The sound that followed still haunts me, her cry of pain mixed with the sickening crack of bone. She crumpled to the ground, landing awkwardly on her side, her knee bent in a way no leg should ever bend. "Oh my God!" she screamed, clutching at her leg while trying to shield her stomach at the same time. The look on her face was a mix of terror and agony, tears streaming instantly as her body trembled. I dropped down beside her, my hands hovering, desperate but unsure where to touch without causing more pain. "Breathe, baby, breathe. I've got you," I whispered, rage boiling under my skin as I looked up at the man who had done this. Instead of backing off, he straightened his clipboard like he hadn't just assaulted a pregnant woman. "That'll teach you to respect authority," he sneered, his voice smug, like he was proud of what he'd done. My chest tightened, heat spreading through me so fast I thought I might explode. "You just broke my wife's knee," I growled, standing up. Slowly, my fists clenched. "She's pregnant. Do you even realize what you've done?" He smirked, tapping the side of his fake badge. "Then maybe next time you'll listen." His posture said he thought he had control, that his costume and threats made him untouchable. Neighbors' porch lights flicked on down the street. Someone must have heard the scream. Still, the man didn't care. He stood there, looming, daring me to make a move. My wife writhed on the ground, sobbing, her voice breaking as she called my name. That was the moment something in me snapped. This wasn't just about HO and nonsense anymore. This was my family, my wife, my unborn child, and the man standing above us had crossed a line he could never come back from. I knew then that words wouldn't stop him. Something else would dot my vision tunneled, every sound around me muffled except for my wife's cries. The man stood there, sneering like he had won something, like breaking a pregnant woman's knee was just another part of his routine. I didn't think I moved. I rushed inside, my chest burning, hands shaking but steady enough to do what I'd done 100 times at the range. I pulled open the drawer in the entryway and wrapped my fingers around cold steel. My Glock felt heavier than usual, but also like the only thing that could balance the scales tonight. When I stepped back onto the porch, the man's smug expression faltered for the first time. His eyes darted to the weapon, then back to my face. "You don't want to do that," he said, voice lower now, less confident. Though he tried to square his shoulders, my wife was groaning, clutching her leg, her breaths ragged. Every sound. She made poured gasoline on the fire in my chest. I raised the Glock steady, finger resting against the trigger guard. "Step back," I ordered, my voice firm, carrying through the night. "Right now." He hesitated, then tried to puff himself. "Up again, that's illegal. You fire that and you'll be the one in prison." "I'm authorized security." "Authorized nothing," I snapped, cutting him off. "You touch my wife again, you don't leave this porch." To make my point clear, I fired a warning shot into the air. The blast cracked like thunder, echoing through the cul-de-sac, windows rattling nearby. The man flinched hard, stumbling back, his fake authority stripped away in an instant. He tried to recover, waving his hands in false bravado. "You're insane," he shouted, but I didn't lower the Glock. My aim shifted lower, closer, the barrel now locked on his chest. My finger slid from the guard to the trigger. "Run," I said coldly. For a second he just stared, weighing whether I was bluffing. Then another neighbor's light flicked on, and somewhere a dog started barking. He realized the whole street had heard the gunfire. Panic swept across his face. Without another word, he spun on his heels and bolted down the sidewalk, but I didn't. Let him leave without remembering the fear. I unloaded more rounds not at him, but into the asphalt inches from his retreating feet. Sparks flew, the ground popping as bullets bit into concrete. He screamed and scrambled faster, legs pumping until he vanished into the night. His getaway car screeched off moments later, taillights shrinking into the darkness. I lowered the Glock, my heart hammering, the smell of gunpowder heavy in the air. My wife whimpered beside me, and I dropped to my knees, holstering the weapon. "It's over, baby," I whispered, though in my gut I knew it wasn't not yet. The sound of screeching tires had barely faded when sirens began to wail in the distance. Neighbors were gathering at the edges of their driveways, some clutching phones, others frozen wide-eyed after hearing both the gunfire and my wife's agonized screams. I waved one of them over, shouting for help. A woman sprinted across the street, dropping to her knees beside my wife as I pressed a towel against her swollen knee, trying to stop the swelling that was already ballooning under her skin. "Hold on, sweetheart. Just hold on," I whispered, my hands trembling as I brushed sweat-damp hair from her face. She gritted her teeth, groaning, tears cutting tracks down her cheeks. "The baby," she gasped, clutching her belly. "Please." The baby. Blue and red lights flooded the street as two cruisers screeched to a stop. MTs piled out of van. Ambulance right behind them. Within seconds, the porch was a flurry of movement. Officers fanned out, weapons drawn until I raised my hands and set my Glock carefully on the porch railing. "He's gone," I said firmly, my voice hoarse. fake cop. He broke her knee. He ran when I fired. One officer collected the pistol. Another knelt to examine the fake badge and clipboard that the man had dropped in his rush to flee. "This isn't even close to regulation," he muttered, disgust dripping from his voice. "Damn costume job. You were right to be suspicious." The EMTs worked quickly, stabilizing my wife's leg and carefully lifting her onto a stretcher. She cried out as they adjusted her, then clutched my hand with surprising strength. "Don't leave me," she begged. "I'm right here. I promised," walking alongside them as they wheeled her toward the ambulance. "I'm not going anywhere." A detective arrived, older, with weary eyes that said he'd seen this kind of madness before. He pulled me aside briefly. "We've had reports of a man posing as HOA security in neighboring communities. This isn't the first time he's tried to intimidate residents, but it's the first time it turned violent. You did the right thing. Tonight." I looked back at the stretcher, at my wife wincing as they secured her. My chest ached, torn between fury and relief. "He's not done until he's caught," I said flatly. The detective nodded. "We'll find him, and when we do, he'll pay for this." As the ambulance doors closed, I climbed inside, refusing to let go of her hand. My heart was pounding, but one truth settled like steel in my bones. Nobody would ever threaten my family again. Not while I drew breath.